This is Leah Steele, aka The Wealth Witch, and this is my podcast. I'm here to activate you to remembrance of your divine birthright to be wealthy in all areas of your life. This podcast is for people ready to have controversial conversations about the financial control, manipulation, and tyranny that faces humanity today.
I'm gonna live in freedom. I'm gonna live my destiny. I'm gonna live my freedom. I'm gonna live, the time is right now.
The Wealth Witch. It's for the people who are ready to wake up, deconstruct their wealth programming, and free themselves from the financial slavery consciousness that serves the global financial agenda. I'm committed to realizing a new global wealth paradigm where economic freedom is the reality and where you get to design and live the life of your dreams. Now let's do the damn thing. Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Wealth Witch podcast. I am your host, Leah Steele, the Wealth Witch. So yesterday I was interviewing my friend Katrina Ruth for the podcast, actually. So she has an episode upcoming. It'll be out in a couple of weeks. But we were talking about something during the interview, and I thought, wow, this is actually a really good topic to bring into another podcast episode and really focus on it, because it's something for me that has been really quite challenging at different times in my business. And I just feel like it's definitely going to resonate with some of you. So as this episode is titled, discipline is not a dirty word. And I wanted to just come on and talk about this and riff about this a little bit, because I used to have so much resistance to discipline in my business, to being disciplined, to consistency, to, making commitments to be disciplined in how I showed up. Not just in my business, but also like in my life. And I think that, coming from corporate America and, being in corporate jobs really since I was 16 years old, I had been working some kind of corporate job up until I left and, went out and branched out on my own. But I had been raised in a employment culture of discipline in how the need to show up, the need to be on time, when you took your lunch break, the amount of work you needed to produce, different KPIs and goals and objectives and, all of that. There was so much discipline and so much need for consistency that I think I just really rebelled against it as I moved out on my own. And the first place that I really saw that was when I, started working for myself in my addiction treatment businesses. And I just, I went against the mold in all things. Like if people told me I needed to do X amount of sales activities to be successful and fill my beds in my treatment centers, I did the opposite of that. I really that was the time in my life when I really tapped into fluidity and going with the flow and kind of doing what I wanted. And I built some really bad habits. And I think it's interesting because, addiction treatment is my family business. And so I was well known and the quality of care in my facilities was really good. My mother was the clinical director, and it was just, there was an excellence in the standard of care that people received in my facility. And as a result of that, we never had a problem filling beds or keeping the facilities full. It was not because I was doing a particularly good job of sales or marketing or any of that stuff. Maybe marketing, I was doing a good job of marketing, but not sales and certainly not, being disciplined or consistent in how I was showing up in that business. And so I really do feel like during that time, I developed some bad habits because things were actually quite easy for me. And I felt like I could get away with not being disciplined and not being consistent in how I was showing up from a sales perspective. And then that, I really am a firm believer in how you do anything is how you do everything. And so as a result of that, I wasn't being disciplined in the other areas of my life. And so, during that time of running that addiction treatment business is really when I had my spiritual reawakening, and I really began to tap back in at a soul level to, who I was, why I'm here on this planet, and, the work that I was actually meant to be doing. And a big part of that in the beginning was just self-discovery. It was, tapping back into who I was at a soul level and getting to know that being again. And so it required, some discipline in accessing that part of myself. But even then, I would rebel. So, one of the things that always worked really well for me early on in my journey, when it came to self-discovery, when it came to peeling back the layers of the onion and getting to the heart and the core of who I was journaling. I wasn't consistent in it. And I didn't like feeling like I had to journal. And I was working with a mentor really early on in my journey, and they basically gave me a challenge. I was having some good results in, uncovering and discovering who I was, and in manifestation, because very early on, I had a huge interest in manifestation. I'd been manifesting my whole life. And I was really interested in learning how to control that manifestation. And I think I've mentioned this in previous podcasts, but at the time I was really, really good at manifesting under stress and duress, but I wasn't very good at manifesting from states of happiness or calmness or, being able to do it in a fluid manner. It just always came down to having to be stressed and have that adrenaline pumping in order to manifest. So that was something that I was working on really pretty early on in my reawakening and in my spiritual journey. So this mentor, asked me when I was having the most success. And I was like, well, when I journal and I can really visualize and tap into the feeling of having the thing that I desire, then that thing has an ability to manifest. And so, then the mentor was like, well, why aren't you journaling regularly? And I could feel that inner rebellion in me, that pushback about oh, I don't want to be told I have to do anything, even by myself. And this is something, you guys, that I've struggled with my whole entire life. I rebel against authority, but I also rebel against myself. And, to my detriment, I am rebellious by nature. And I think that serves me in a lot of ways, but it also is my Achilles heel in many ways, where I just, I will, what's the saying? Bite off my foot despite my face. Is that the saying? Something my grandma used to say. I think I'm probably butchering it, but bite off my nose despite my face. That's what it is. Is that what it is? Bite off your nose to spite your face? Yeah, I think that's it. Anyway, a little shout out to grandma there. Resting in paradise, I trust. So anyway, I just, started to feel that internal rebellion. And I'm I know that this mentor is going to tell me that I need to journal regularly and consistently. And I don't want to do that. And the mentor did. They said, look, journal every day for 90 days. And if at the end of 90 days, your life isn't radically different, you can stop, you can go back to doing, your journaling all willy-nilly and, sporadically and as you feel inclined to do it. And because it was this challenge, they sparked my competitive spirit, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And my life, and I was and I'm pretty sure my life isn't going to be radically changed at the end of 90 days for doing things consistently. Because at the time I was so rebellious against any kind of consistency, any kind of discipline. The other thing that I was super, super rebellious against was balance. I thought balance was the biggest bunch of bullshit. I was just no, fuck balance. I don't need balance in my life. Nobody's ever balanced. I do kind of believe this still at some level. I believe that something's always out of balance. I don't believe that it's actually possible for us to have complete and total harmonious balance in all areas of our lives. But these were kind of my sticking points, especially with the spiritual community. It was these things. But I took the challenge. And I did the journaling. And within 30 days, my life had radically changed and transformed. And this is really when I started tapping into that concept of abracadabra, the way that I see it and the way that I vision it. And it is just that, abracadabra for me is, it translates as I speak, I create. But for me, the thing that I realized it was so much deeper than that. It was as I speak, I create, but also as I think, I create, and as I write, I create. And through journaling, I was really tapping into two of those three things, because I was thinking and I was writing, and I was seeing that when I did that with consistency, and when I did that in a disciplined way, that the things that I desired to manifest were coming to fruition very, very quickly. So within 30 days, my life had radically changed. And I stuck with the 90-day challenge, and I journaled every day for 90 days. And I ended up releasing a course, the Boss Witch journaling course, creation journaling course, that is still to date one of my best-selling courses. And in fact, wasn't planning on doing this, but let's just do a special coupon for everyone listening to this podcast. That course is typically $222. We will give you a 50% coupon off of that course. It's an incredible 7-module journaling course where I share some of my own personal journaling, and you get 45 journaling prompts delivered to your email box over 90 days. If journaling is something that you've struggled with, or you need to be more consistent in it, or you want to take this 90-day challenge and see if your life will radically transform, because I know it will, then we will put a link in the show notes to the Boss Witch creation journaling course and give you a 50% off coupon that will just make podcast. And you can purchase that course and dive into that. I think that you will love it. You'll definitely not regret that. It's one of my favorite courses that I've done, and probably my number one best-selling course that I've done. So I did the 90 days. I recognized and realized that discipline in certain areas of my life actually was good. But I needed to put a spin on it, because I still did have, and I still do have, this very rebellious nature. And so I needed to look at discipline in a different way. I needed to look at it as a positive instead of a negative. So I'd made all these negative associations with discipline, and I needed to really switch that. And so what I began doing is shifting this idea of discipline from being like this very military, rigorous, constrictive, like the word discipline always felt so constrictive to me, constrictive thing, to something that enabled me to be devotional to myself and to my desires. And so I shifted from just this concept and idea of discipline to being disciplined, dedicated, and devotional. And to being disciplined, dedicated, and devotional, first and foremost, to my personal practices, because that's what actually enables me to show up in the world as the best version of myself, and to embody the best version of myself, and then also to manifest the things into my life that I deeply desire. So that dedication, devotion, and discipline, right? It's like I show my devotion to myself by being disciplined in doing the actions that I know serve my highest and best good. And so I just made that little shift. And now, and it's not that I still find myself rebelling, even against myself, even against my journaling sometimes. But when I come back into remembrance of this concept of like, no, it's actually not about constriction. It's about expansion. Through discipline, I achieve expansion. Through dedication, I achieve expansion. Through devotion, I achieve expansion. And so discipline doesn't need to be a dirty word. This episode was about discipline, but I want to just riff a little bit on consistency as well. For those of you that are entrepreneurs or solopreneurs, and are out there, trying to make a go of your businesses, consistency is something that is so, so, so important. And it is another thing that I rebelled against, because I didn't like feeling like I was forced into showing up, being disciplined and showing up consistently, right? And I've gone through waves and periods of doing this and not doing this. And most recently, I had about a 6-month period where I really have been very, very disheartened and disgusted with social media and the online space. And I had, in large part, basically almost completely pulled my energy back from social media. Now, it wouldn't appear that way to most people because I have an incredible team that repurposes all of my content, and it does look like I'm in all the places all the time. But that's my team posting snippet videos or content snippets of stuff that I've previously written or previously recorded. But in large part, I had pulled my energy back, and I had started to see a plateau in financial numbers in my business, in growth in my business. And the more that plateau was happening, the more frustrated I was getting and the more I was pulling back. And I was perpetuating and creating the thing that I didn't actually want. And, this is the thing about manifestation. When you're a powerful manifester, you are just as powerful manifesting the things that you don't want as you are manifesting the things that you do want. And so it's important to remember that. Like when we begin to flex that manifestation muscle and we learn to hone in on that and we step into the energy of, the quantum field in that way where we're able to pull those realities that exist in the infinite now into this timeline and this reality, it's powerful energy. It's very powerful work, and it's not just for good. And so we have to you'll hear me all the time, mind your mind, mind your mouth, because you will manifest just as easily the negative or the things that you don't desire. And so this is really what's been happening to me over the last 6 months. It's like, I've been frustrated. I've reinforced that frustration, which has created more frustration, which has created a longer plateau. I'm really lucky that it wasn't like a backslide, which sometimes happens, but it was just this plateau. And I've been really unhappy about it. And it was like this light bulb just went off 2 weeks ago. You'll laugh at this, but this light bulb just went off and it was like, of course this is happening. You're not showing up. Like energetically, you're not putting your energy out into your community. Now, obviously and even in the last 2 months, I've been showing up inconsistently for this podcast. But that does have to do with some of this plateau that I'm talking about and some of this frustration with humanity that I'm talking about. But it also had to do with the fact that I was traveling around the world and my grandmother passed away. But the truth of the matter is that I can have all the excuses in the world for why I'm doing it. But the fact of the matter is I'm still doing it. I've still pulled back. I've still energetically detached. And 2 weeks ago, I just had this light bulb aha moment. And it was like, the only thing you need to do to shift this and move back into a growth phase and move back into an expansion phase is simply show up and be consistent in the showing up. And of course, I have that light bulb aha moment. And then my inner rebel is like, we don't want to show up consistently. We don't want to have to do something every single day. And literally, these are my internal dialogues. Who are you to tell us that we need to show up that way? Like, this business is supposed to be about fluidity. I'm supposed to be in flow states and be able to do what I want to do. But the fact of the matter is, if you're not disciplined, if you're not showing up, if you're not making the commitment and you're not being consistent, it's impossible to access those flow states. And it's impossible to access those creation states regularly. And instead, you're just having these sporadic moments of inspiration. But when you're dedicated and you're consistent and you're disciplined in showing up, whatever that looks like, for me, it's like I have made a commitment to, it's either a post or a live stream every single day. And I haven't given myself an end date on that. I'm just putting that in place right now until I start to feel good about the expansion of the business. And I am taking days off. I am taking full days off, which is something that I haven't been really good about doing ever in the history of my business. So I'm showing up consistently. I'm doing a post or a live stream, but on my days off that I'm taking off, which it's 2 full days every week, non-negotiable, I'm not doing any posts on that day and I'm not doing any work on that day. So, I'm constantly in growth and evolution of who I am and how I run my business and how I do all of these things. That's just who I am. And so I'm sharing that with you. And I hope that that's helpful for somebody. And I hope that, this reframe around discipline is helpful as well. because I know that there's a lot of people out there that follow me that have their own inner rebel that can sabotage them, like mine does me at times. So hopefully that reframe helps. And, as far as the consistency piece goes, I was like, okay, I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to make this commitment to myself because I know it's in my highest and best good. I'm going to show up. I'm going to be consistent for my audience. And within 2 days, I had a $20,000 day. So, the other piece of this is that when we show up in the highest alignment for what is in our best good, the universe will show up to support that. The universe will show up to give you the signs that is what you're meant to be doing. And if you're like me and you have a huge inner rebel, it feels like the universe is a little kinder in the quickness of delivery of the results. And I think that's because, for me, I think it's because the universe knows I'm impatient and I have to see the results in order to keep doing the work in order to get the rewards. So hopefully you can shift your perspective a little bit on discipline and consistency, and balance is a whole other podcast. So we'll have to do that one separately. But yeah, hope you have an amazing rest of your day, morning, evening, wherever you are in the world as you are listening to this podcast. Please remember, it is your divine birthright to be wealthy in all areas of your life. And you are so worthy and you are so deserving. So if you want to really tap into this power of journaling and challenge yourself on your discipline and your devotion and your dedication to the highest level version of yourself, then make sure you check the show notes, grab the link for the Boss Switch Creation Journaling course. Make sure you put the code in so that you can get your 50% off, and let me know how it goes. Have an amazing, amazing, amazing rest of your day. Until next time, this is the Wealth Witch signing off. That's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to connect with me on social media and reach out. I love hearing from you. And if you want more of me, real, raw, and uncensored, make sure to join the Wealth Witch Telegram channel. It's my free channel where I share all of my random daily musings, as well as the information that I feel like is important and pertinent to my community. We've put a link to the Telegram channel in the show notes, so make sure to come join us over there if that intrigues you. Remember, wealth is a mindset, and you are the most powerful creator in your reality. Until next time, this is the Wealth Witch signing off.